Welcome, Bucs fans, to another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, JC Allen, and the Bucs season is officially over, unfortunately. They made it further than a lot of people expected them to go, making it all the way to the divisional round and really hung in that game with a tough Detroit Lions team. Had a few opportunities to win it, but just didn't get to it. But there's a lot to build on, a lot to look forward to, a lot to be proud of this NFL team. We'll take a look back at that game, again, the future, and some other latest news around the Tampa Bay Bucs here when we come right back.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
What's up, Bucs fans? We're back here at Pirate Parlay on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC Allen, and I'm not going to waste any time. I started my first podcast of the season with this man. He's one of my best friends on the beat, former coworker, former colleague. You guys know him as a capologist. It's Josh Queipo from Pewter Report.
Hey, JC, how are you?
What's going on, man? How's everything doing? How are you? And thanks for being here.
I am doing very well. I appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk a little bit of Bucs as we transition out of the 2023 season into the 2024 season.
Yeah, I figured I started my first episode with you at the beginning of the season, so I figured what way to end the season, bring back my man on here. And plus, he's a wealth of knowledge, too, about what's about to happen in these upcoming months. But before we go there, let's look back. Let's look back at the game against Detroit. Obviously, not the outcome that many Bucs fans wanted, that Bucs themselves wanted to. But when you look at where they were, you look at where a lot of people had them predicted. They did a lot better than what a lot of people thought. They actually, they upset the Eagles in the wild card round, made it super wild card round. Sorry, NFL, and made it to the divisional round where they almost beat the Lions. A couple self-inflicted wounds, a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Matter of fact, not so much help from the refs either. And they just fell short. But I want to get your thoughts on that game since we still are just 3 days out or 2 days out, 3 days by the time this drops. But what are your thoughts of that game? Did you see that you think they can kind of build upon next year? And what was encouraging to you?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with very interesting way of introducing me, saying I'm a wealth of knowledge, and then immediately going into the dig about how I underpredicted their record by way too much, by 2 games. So I appreciate the backhanded compliment. So thank you
Always.
for that. As far as the game goes, I think the offense did well enough. The first Baker interception, definitely not on him. They moved the ball well. They ran the ball better than they have for much of the season. Just a couple of drives right in the middle of the game, just after the half, that kind of allowed them to get away, the Lions to get away. And it really came down to the defense wasn't able to kind of hold as well as you would want. They made a valiant effort at the end of the game. I agree with you in terms of the refs. There were some poor ball spots there. And then, it's just unfortunate right at the end. They had that chance to maybe go back and tie. And Baker played really well all game for the most part, and just bad ball on that one. It's going to happen from time to time. Just happened at the wrong time.
Now, you mentioned, the lull right there in the middle and where the Lions kind of took off. And what I noticed was the middle of the field was just wide open for them to attack. Mm-hmm. What was it about their ability to attack that? Was it bad defense by the Bucs? Was it a combination of just good play calling and getting the guys in the right spot with Ben Johnson? Why were they able to, and why weren't they able to take advantage of that earlier on in the game? What happened? What led them to realize that was a spot that they could attack?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of scheme. In a Todd Bowles scheme, the middle of the field is an opportunity for the opposing offense. A lot of the way, just in the way he attacks, he puts a lot of guys at the line of scrimmage, and he does try to play some games in terms of dropping outside linebackers and defensive tackles. And, those aren't guys who are going to be able to pull back 8, 10, 12 yards really quickly. And in a cover 3 heavy scheme, that leaves a lot of area in the middle of the field, especially because Bowles does like to blitz. He didn't blitz quite as much in Detroit as he did the week prior against Philly, but it was still around 50% of the time. So when you're sending 5 guys in and you've got 3 guys covering the deep third, that leaves only 3 players to cover that entire intermediate area of the field as well as short. A lot of the cover 3 schemes, you're going to have somebody who has to cover a flat. So now you've left 2 players, oftentimes not necessarily a safety and a athletic linebacker, to cover wide swaths of field. Jared Goff was given a lot of time to find open receivers because the Bucs pass rush, I think they only pressured him 28% of the time per Pro Football Focus. And Goff, have given him a lot of time. He's an effective quarterback. He can find the backside dig, which was there for him a lot. Ben Johnson is a very creative play caller. There were a bunch of plays where he basically motioned somebody to the concept side. That forces the Bucs linebackers to have to try and widen to cover a 3-by-1 set off to the concept side. And then he just brings the number 2 receiver over the top of that linebacker on some type of dig or post, and over the linebacker underneath the deep safety, it's there. And they were able to take advantage of that quite a bit. On top of that, Sam Laporta is an alien. And the Bucs decided to cover him with Ryan Neal and KJ Britt, and that's an absolute advantage for Detroit, and they took advantage of it. Amon-Ra St. Brown also work in the middle of the field. So it was an area that the Lions were able to exploit, and credit to them, they were able to get it done.
Yeah, it's kind of the difference of the game there. They did a great job in the early half, but once the Lions realized, that what they were doing, they could take advantage of that area. You saw them attack it with a variety of different players: Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs. They all feasted right there in the middle of the field, no matter what the Bucs tried to do to adjust it. And by the time they finally did, it was a little too late. I want to talk about one thing too that kind of was the talk of Bucs fans, and even on the broadcast, it seems like they kind of weren't sure what was going on, and that was the play of Aiden Hutchinson. You're watching it live, and you're hearing some people say, "Get Luke Goedeke out of here. He sucks. Why is he just letting Aiden Hutchinson run free?" But from an X's and O's standpoint, that wasn't really his responsibility, was it?
No. Nate Tice on Twitter. If anybody's on Twitter and they want a really great explanation, I would recommend taking a look at what he said. Basically, Detroit brought more rushers than the Bucs had blockers. It was a 5-man pass protection scheme. As the back was coming out, Detroit brought 6. So in those rules for that particular protection, you have the offensive linemen are supposed to protect from a spatial standpoint the 5 most dangerous rushers, which are the 5 closest to the quarterback working inside out. So in this particular protection against this particular blitz, Hutchinson is deemed the least dangerous player because he's the furthest away from the quarterback. So right. He's going to become the free rusher. Goedeke's not supposed to pick him up. He has to be accounted for by the quarterback in terms of getting the ball out hot, finding some type of option to get the ball out before Hutchinson gets there. Unfortunately, Baker wasn't able to get it out, and Hutchinson gets the sack. And that happened a few different times. And it's a credit to Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions. He found an opportunity to pick on these 5-man protection schemes, and he found he I guess saw an opportunity with the Bucs offense that he thought that he could exploit. And they ended up getting 4 sacks on the day. So a good few of those coming from exploiting this particular thing.
Yeah, if you looked at it, 2 of those came from Aiden Hutchinson. And the reason why this was so effective was because earlier in the game, Brian Branch came in screaming in on a nickel blitz as he was deemed that furthest guy or away from the quarterback. So he was going to have to do that. So once Brian Branch showed that he could get back there and be disruptive, he became that kind of target for them to slow down on those other 2 blitzes. And that's where you had Aiden Hutchinson do that dirty work. So I thought that was fascinating, the way that those were called and picked up. And, just kind of wanted to explain that to some people who thought, here he is, Luke Goedeke's having a hell of a season, and now all of a sudden he's just letting up free rushes like he doesn't know what his job details. So I just wanted to clear that up for some viewers. I wanted to ask you on Mike Evans' touchdown and his long play prior to that. What made that so other than Mike Evans being an alien. What made those play calls so effective? And hopefully you've gone to the offensive side of the ball yet.
So I haven't been able to watch the all-22 on the offensive side. I've only gotten to the defensive side so far. But just kind of going back to
defensive questions. No, I'm just kidding.
You're talking about the 2 long balls at the 2-minute warning before the half.
Yes.
Yeah. So the second one that got him down to the 2-yard line, he's running a deep vertical, basically like a go or fade, and he just beats his man off the press. The corner, and I think it was Cam Sutton, attempted to jam him at the line, and Mike just kind of olayed him, got behind him, and then was off to the races. And Baker put a great ball on him. The one right before that, I think it was something similar. I can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize, but that's just Mike being physical and winning at the line of scrimmage. And then he's always been underrated in terms of his deep speed. But if he's given a step, he can exploit it, and especially with his frame and with his arms, how long his arms are. If he can win off the line against a jam, it's a good bet he's going to have a big game.
And we'll get back to Mike here in a second. And before we just wrap up this game, I want to just get your thoughts and opinion on this controversy surrounding Todd Bowles and the timeout. Obviously, Dan Campbell said clock management at the end of the game, they should have waited that 19 seconds to go ahead and kneel that clock out, but they didn't. They ran up to the line, snapped it quick, and that left about 35 seconds left on the game clock. Had Bowles called a timeout, forcing them to kick about a 48-yard field goal. Obviously, we've seen what's happened in the NFL over divisional round weekend. Bagley's not an all. He's no John. He's no Tucker. That's for sure. Or Adam Vinatieri. So, what is your take on the whole no timeout call by Bowles?
Yeah, I mean, he should have called the timeout. I don't see it was the third biggest mistake he made from a time management standpoint on the game. I would much rather have a conversation around him not going for it on 4th and 1 and 4th and 4. Yep. Those had a much larger impact on the outcome of the game than calling a timeout with 34 or 19 seconds left, whatever it was. So I think we're looking in the wrong places in terms of questioning Todd Bowles' game management skills. I would much rather have a conversation around things that happened much earlier in the game when it was much more in doubt.
Right. I think the 4th and 4 is a no-brainer. You're in their territory. You settle for the 50-yard field goal that boinks off. The 4th and 1 I can kind of see because they're still in their zone. If you lose that, you're giving Detroit a really short field, almost an automatic field goal at that point. But I'm with you right there on that 4th and 4. I think you got to go for that. You're playing an aggressive team with an aggressive coach who's going to do the same thing. You gotta match his aggressiveness and go for that.
Yeah. There were 3. One of them he got right, which was the 2-point conversion. Right. But you're a road dog. In those situations, you have to be aggressive. You have to take advantage of opportunities to keep things going in your favor. He did it with the 2-point conversion. I was very happy with that decision. But the 4th and 1, the 4th and 4, you're giving away opportunities to take the lead and to win the game. And so those would be the ones that I disagreed with. The timeout, I mean, you're talking about a 0.5% win probability at that point. But I mean, again, yes. Should he have taken it? Sure. Was it in the grand scheme of things really going to have any effect on the game? No. The other 2, the 4th down calls, those had an effect.
All right. Let's switch gears here because I only got you for a short amount of time. I want to jump into your thoughts on this rookie season, rookie class, and just in general, the job that Light and Co. have did, finding not only starters, but guys who contributed all over the season. To you, who is the most standout rookie and who are you most excited for next year?
Most excited for and probably standout is Kalijah Cansey. Their first round pick. I think they hit a home run on that one. Immediately stepped in and showed that he can be a force in the most important thing that you want a defensive tackle to be able to do, which is rush the passer. The speed, the burst off the line, the explosiveness, the hand usage, the pass rush plan. It's everything that he had when he was at Pitt translated. And he was actually better against the run. Yeah, exactly. You and me. and he was better against the run than I expected. He's never going to be like a super plus run defender, but he can hold his own and he can be a 3-down player, which was the big question about him. Can he really play all 3 downs? And he absolutely can. So I think that he's got the highest ceiling. I think he was the most exciting and the most consistent performer. The next one I would probably be most excited about go forward is Cody Mauch, their second rounder. So you can see kind of first 2 picks were the biggest ones. Mauch had an up and down year. Every game was up and down, but you could see him learning throughout the season. His biggest issue, I think, was holding up against power and strength. And he doesn't have the body for a guard yet. He needs a full off season to put on weight and mass and strength. And so now he's going to get that headed into year 2. So I foresee big things from Mauch. But a lot of things to really like with him, the demeanor, the tenacity, the footwork, the ability to recover, which was
amazing.
Absolutely amazing. The next one I'm most excited about is probably Trey Palmer, especially considering where he was drafted. I think Palmer had a really solid rookie season, especially considering he wasn't supposed to be the number 3 receiver. A lot of people forget Russell Gage was lost for the entire season in training camp. But Palmer showed deep speed. He showed ball tracking ability. He showed the ability to get off the line against press. He was a much better route runner than I thought he was when I scouted him coming out of Nebraska. There are some things he's going to have to work on, but the base skill set is there to be a solid contributor. And I'd say ceiling as a quality number 2 wide receiver that can stretch the field. Yaya Diaby had a solid season. A lot of his sacks were kind of gimmies. They were schemed up for him, but he shows a high floor in terms of his run defense, his strength, his physicality. He's got to learn how to string moves together and develop a few different pass rush moves and counters and things like that. There's an opportunity for him to improve by a good amount. I don't think he's the dominant edge the Bucs need in their edge room, but there's still a lot of stuff. And then you have other contributors and their undrafted free agents in terms of Rakim Jarrett and Chris Isian. So Josh Hayes, who was a late round pick, was a great core special teamer. So you got a lot of contributions out of a very large rookie class. And that's something to be very excited about as the roster continues to turn over from that Super Bowl year. And you get less and less of those guys in the building.
Yeah, right. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of these guys and their potential, and we'll dive deeper into them in a later show. But I want to ask you now. You mentioned it. There's a lot of potential with these pieces going forward, and going forward is the offseason. And the Bucs have a lot of decisions they need to make. Let's get down into the brass tacks of dollars and cents, because I've got the cap genius himself here. What are the Bucs looking like at cap space? What moves they need to make, and what moves can they make to open up more? And realistically, what are your thoughts on what the Bucs will have? And if you haven't already, he did a quick breakdown on his Twitter page, but an excellent breakdown of Pewter Report. But I'm going to have him say everything he wrote on camera right now for y'all.
All right. So they've got about $38 million in room as it stands. All right. They can open up more cap space by restructuring the contracts of Vita Vea, Chris Godwin, Jamel Dean. There's a good chance they're probably going to cut Shaq Barrett. I was actually just talking with somebody literally minutes before I came on this podcast. Good chance that'll actually be a post 6-1 designation, which will allow them to save, give me 1 second here, for about $5 million off of his current cap hit. And they'll carry a large cap hit into 2025.
That wouldn't be available till after June 1st, correct?
Yeah, but he's got a relatively low cap hit here until June 1st. You're correct on that. It's a $14 million cap hit that they would have to carry through to June 1st. And then at that point, they would be able to save $5 million. You basically consider that the rookie pool, a good portion of the rookie pool, or operating costs. Yeah. Exactly. Carlton Davis is a potential cap casualty where they can cut him and save, I think, somewhere around $6 million. Russell Gage will be a cap casualty. They'll save a few million off of him. And then that allows them to start looking at keeping some of their core free agents, right? So Antoine Winfield Jr., he'll be an unrestricted free agent. I foresee them probably using the franchise tag on him, which will cost about $17.22 million. You have Mike Evans. He's up. I project him for somewhere around 3 years at around $25 million a year. So that's 75.
Now,
year one cap. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Do the year one cap it. But I have a question about that contract once you're done.
Go ahead and ask.
Okay. So with that contract, if he is not re-signed by February 19th or something around that date, then his accelerated dead money that he's projected to have due to void years, that accelerates into this year's cap. So essentially, if you sign him for $25 million, but prorate some of that, let's call it how much this year?
So to kind of get to pick up where you're left off, his current deal has void years that would, let's say the Bucs don't sign him at all. He's going to cost them $12.2 million in 2024 as a dead cap hit. If they fail to come to an agreement by that deadline, when the contract technically voids out, they'll have to incur that hit even if they re-sign him after that. Okay, so effectively, he'll cost them on the cap twice, once for the old deal, once for the new deal.
Correct.
But if they're able to come to terms on that extension prior to that date, what they'll be able to do is continue to allow those prorations, which is about $4.8 million in 2024, $4.8 million in 2025, and $2.6 million in 2026. It'll allow them to keep those numbers in those years. So rather than the old deal costing them $12.2 million in 2024, it'll only cost them $4.8 million plus the new number. So there is an incentive for the Bucs to be able to come to terms with Evans before that date from a cap standpoint. So there's an opportunity there. Similar situation with Baker Mayfield, and I believe even Levante David.
Right.
Which brings me to Baker Mayfield.
Much smaller numbers for those two.
Yeah. Yeah, which brings me to Baker Mayfield. So a lot of people wondering what would a Baker Mayfield extension look like, or what would a Baker Mayfield contract look like? I personally have it projected at 3 years, $82.5 million. Year one cap hit would be around $12.5 million. That's not including what we kind of just talked about with Mike Evans, just on its own, standalone. That could look like a $12.5 million cap hit year one. And it would allow its signing team. It would basically allow the signing team, and since we're talking about the Bucs, let's assume it's the Bucs, to go year to year with Mayfield, where year two, there's an opportunity where they could actually walk away from the contract and save cap dollars. It wouldn't be much. It'd be about $2 million based on kind of how I structured it in my hypothetical projection, but they would be able to. So it's a win-win from both sides. I think I had the guaranteed money at somewhere around $32.5 million. So it's a decent payday for Mayfield, and it gives the signing team flexibility. Then you have Levante David. If he chooses to come back, last year he played on a $4 million contract. What a lot of people don't realize is the Bucs kind of set up. They were cap strapped, so they weren't able to kind of give him the money that he was really looking for. So they set it up in incentives that are considered not likely to be earned. And what they mean by that is just it was a performance metric that he did not attain in 2022. So if he hits it in 2023, he gets the money for the bonus, but it doesn't hit 2023's cap. It pushes into the new year.
Where's cap?
In 2024, because they have more cap space, there's a good chance that they just go and guarantee that money. So for me, I've projected Levante to have like a 1 year, $7 million contract if he decides to keep going with the Bucs.
So obviously another big piece of the puzzle is Tristan Wirfs, and he's set to play in his 5th-year option, which because of his success is about 18. That's definitely going to probably get restructured down so they have some more room to spend. In all, though, realistically, let's say they do reach a deal with Mike, and they do, post one Shaq. Is there an opportunity for this team to go out there and get maybe a Brian Burns or a Josh Allen, or potentially somewhere even a little bit mid-level like a Bryce Huff? Or are they pretty much shooting at mid-tier free agents and looking for some gems again?
Yeah, I love the name you brought up at the end there, Bryce Huff, because I wouldn't say he's a top tier. I did a contract projection for him that should be coming out soon with A to Z Sports, and he would be like a $14.5 million APY guy, average per year. Definitely not that tier 1 edge rusher. So I think that they could afford someone like that. I don't foresee them. The Bucs could create a ton of room and go after a tier 1 edge rusher. I just don't think they will.
Right.
And you mentioned with Wirfs, I don't think they restructure his 5th year option, but I think that there's an impetus to both sides to do a long-term deal. And if they are, it would reduce his 2024 cap hit by somewhere around $5 to $7 million, depending on how it's structured. So there's an opportunity to get him locked up long-term and improve the cap situation in 2024. The Bucs will have enough money to say, what are the positions we really want to target for some improvements and find quality starters. I don't think they're going to go after big stars, but like I said, quality starters, absolutely. That is something that they should be doing and that they most likely will. Some positions that I think they might target would be like strong safety, left guard. Those are positions that don't, even the top end guys don't really command a lot of money, but you can get quality starters at really reasonable prices. Maybe like a Jordan Whitehead reunion. He's going to be a free agent, and him and Winfield played really well in the first couple years of Winfield's career. So, and there are a couple of quality guards out there that I think that they might look at, maybe even a center. But those would be the positions that I think you're probably going to see them dabble in, potentially even a free agent wide receiver to push Palmer as that number 3 option.
Awesome stuff. I got one more question, then we'll get you out of here because I know you're up against it. But there's news swirling. Dave Canales is going back for a second interview. I believe it's going to happen on Wednesday. There's a lot of connecting of the dots now that Dan Morgan is the GM there, was the director of pro personnel, overlap time with Dave Canales. If Dave Canales does go to the Panthers, where do the Bucs pivot? Is Baker Mayfield still an option to come back, do you think? Same thing with Mike Evans. Where do they go? Is it someone on the roster? I think I know a name you might say, or are they going digging for diamonds somewhere else?
Yeah, I think a couple things here. If he goes, I do still think Baker and Mike are in play. I give Todd Bowles a ton of credit for the Dave Canales hire. I've been a big supporter of Canales. I don't think he's perfect. His first down run rate drives me up a damn wall. But as far as constructing an offensive playbook, I think he's fantastic. And then just the communication, I think the way he holds his people accountable, he's I can't say enough about the guy. I think he's really fantastic. And if the Panthers hire him, I think they're better off for it. And if not this season, I definitely think he'll be a head coach very soon. If the Bucs wanted to stay internal, I think Thad Lewis, who's their quarterback's coach, is a great possibility. But I would encourage Bowles to do exactly what he did last year, which is interview a ton of people, internal, external, and go with the best person for the job, regardless of the resume. Lewis, I think, checks a lot of the boxes for a good resume. He's worked under multiple systems. So he was with the Bucs as an assistant wide receivers coach. I think initially he started as like an intern with them in the Coach Accelerator program a few years ago under Byron Leftwich, which a lot of people say if he worked with Leftwich, no. But it was under Arians, and he learned that offense, which is one type of offense in the NFL, a vertical, no risk it, no biscuit kind of passing attack, duo run scheme. Then he got to work with Canales this year. He was the quarterback's coach for Baker Mayfield in Baker Mayfield's, arguably his best season as a pro. You look at that kind of paralleling Canales himself, who worked with Russ Wilson and then got the best season out of Geno Smith. So, and then we found out not too long ago, Thad Lewis, called his first touchdown. He called the play for Rachaad White against Atlanta in Atlanta, the screen pass. And so there's a lot there for a young, innovative mind with multiple systems under his belt that I think he could be a good option for that particular role. But I do encourage, if he were listening to me, I would encourage Todd Bowles to cast a wide net, look at some of the external options, and don't be afraid to go outside the box like he did with Canales, because that worked really well for him.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. We'll definitely get you back on here. We just scratched the surface of offseason. We're not even touching the draft yet, but we'll definitely get him back on here for his excellent breakdown analysis. If you guys haven't been following him all season on Twitter or any of his work at Pewter Report, wake up. Wake up. This guy is incredible. He bursts on the scene. Similar story to me. Hey, look at us, all right? Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Is that the Paul Rudd gift?
That's the Paul Rudd, but it's been amazing to watch his ascent, watch his career, watch him develop into one of the most knowledgeable reporters that I know, certainly, and certainly that cover the Bucs. So I'm going to give you all your flowers after that backhanded compliment I gave you earlier, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know, guys, he had a hard out because he's going to record with John Ledyard over at Audibles Analytics, another amazing podcast, our mentor over there. So definitely tune out for that. It's going to be out tomorrow at some point, I'm sure, unless John can't edit it. But Josh, once again, thanks enough for coming on. Always appreciate you, brother. And we'll do this
Anytime,
again.
JC. I appreciate it.
That's going to do it here. Quick episode today, short episode. I've got some players on deck, but everyone's kind of, in the middle of leaving Tampa, getting their stuff together, and they're a little down. So, but I've got a whole Rolodex in here worth of players to come on this offseason, some more coaches as well, and a bunch of great draft guests, some more just guests from all over the place. So I've got a wealth of connections in this business. I'm really excited to share with you guys in interview format. I'll probably pop on and do a couple solos too, just to give you my thoughts, my opinions on some things too. But it's always nice to have a guest to bounce things back off of. But I want to thank you first of all. This is the first season, and we started a little bit late. Didn't get off till week 3, but we'll be going all off season into next season. And again, I'll keep the guests coming. I'll keep the good content rolling for you guys. Always, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, turn on the notifications on this. Go check out some of the old ones if you missed them. We've had Shaq on, Dave Canales, Rashad White, Kate Otten, Luke Gedeke, Cody Malk. We've got more and more guys coming on. I've got a couple, Trey Palmer, maybe, Trishan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield, Jamel Dean, Anthony Nelson. I've got some guys ready to come on board here. So keep it tuned here. Like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check out all my work over on Twitter, all my written work over on Bucs Game Day by Sports Illustrated. Hopefully, we won't get into that. But check all that stuff out. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for riding with me, Bucs Nation. I love you. I love how you've embraced me. And I try to give you guys the best unbiased coverage I can of this Buccaneers team. And I just want to thank you guys again. So that's going to do it for me. I'm out of here until next week. We'll be back breaking down some more off-season stuff, maybe later this week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We fly that by the seat of our pants here, but we'll be back soon breaking down some more off-season stuff. There's plenty of things going on, awards, all sorts of stuff. We'll get into it. We'll get after it, and we'll give it to you. Out. Peace.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.